Hi, I'm Jeff. This is Tropical Plants at 53 degrees north. Now, I've done a video about growing more pitchers in the past, but today I thought I'd try and condense that into a list of about 8 things with a couple of bonus things right at the end. These are tips which I have not only researched, but I have done a little bit of trial and error and from my own experiences, and it's worked. So here, just for as much as my own reference as anybody else's, here are my 8 quick tips to grow more pitchers on your Nepenthes. So let's jump in. And we are in. Okay, so I'll be as brief and quick as possible because I understand people are in a rush these days. So I'll quickly go through the few Nepenthes I've got over here. I've got several more in the greenhouse, but they're all small ones, so I'm not going to show you those. I'm going to show you these more mature plants. So you're looking at the moment Nepenthes gaya, which is a beautiful Nepenthes plant. You can see the lovely colours on it, the beautiful markings on it. It did have quite a lot of red on it at one point, which I'll go through that in a little moment. To the right of that, these very dark, almost black pitchers. This is Nepenthes Rebecca Soper. Moving along, we've got Nepenthes burkei with loads of pitchers on there, and then another Rebecca Soper at the end there. Those were joined at one point and I divided them, and you can see loads of pitchers on those. So I'm only going to show you these 3 hybrids here, 3 cultivars I should say. Two of them are the same. So first of all, if you have seen my other video on growing more pitchers on Nepenthes, you'll see it was a little bit more of a rambling kind of a video, which of course I know I'm well known. However, I'm hoping that this is a little bit more condensed, a bit more to the point. So I'm going to go through the 8 things that I've tried. That last video talked about the care needs in a little bit more detail, but here I'm just going to list them off, the things that I've tried that have worked, that helped me to get my Nepenthes to grow more pitchers. Of course, if you live in a tropical area, then you'll probably find that you don't need any of these, or maybe just a few of them. But if you live in a temperate country like mine, I live in the north of the UK, it's certainly not tropical, and left to their own devices in this greenhouse, they would not pitcher, and in fact they weren't doing until I did these 8 things. So we'll start off with number 1, highlight. Not direct sunlight, but they need as much light as you can possibly give them. It's got to be diffused, it's got to be through some kind of shading, however, as much as you can. They will tell you if they're getting too much. You can see just on top there, you can see the reddening of the leaf there. That's what happens if they get too much light. But most of those leaves now are green, I'm happy to say. At one point they were going very red. This one up here, the Rebecca Soper, goes red very, very easily. Different Nepenthes from different places, whether it's highland or lowland, and which extreme of the highland or lowland it comes from, that is what really determines how easily those leaves go red. However, the first tip is that you must give them as much light as possible. So tip number 2, you don't want to be giving them any kind of rainwater that comes off a roof. If it comes off a roof, then it's likely to have nutrients in them. These plants grow epiphytically. They grow in moss usually, or the forest floor, but again it's going to be in sphagnum moss, and the likelihood is that there is not very much nutrition there. This is why they've developed this rather wonderful mutation of growing these pitchers on the ends of their leaves, which is a fantastic thing, and it amazes me every day to think how that has evolved over millions of years from just a single leaf. So you need to give them either RO water, that's reverse osmosis water. I do have a video on that somewhere on how to set one of those systems up. Just show you there. Look at the teeth round the edge of that pitcher. Isn't that lovely? Really, really nice pitchers. Shame they're all pointing in the other direction. So if you don't want to give them RO water, or you don't have the facility for that, then some other kind of filtered water or any kind of water that you can get hold of that you know doesn't have any dissolved solids in it. You can always test it with a TDS meter. So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3, I'm going to come back to because it's my favourite one and the one that really I think moved the needle for me. Tip number 4, water them daily, and you do not want them sitting in water. You notice I've got mine in hanging baskets, but that absolutely ensures that they're not sitting in any water. All my other plants are sitting in gravel trays, and when I had them sitting in gravel trays, it was very easy for the water to kind of go through the bottom, and they sat in a little bit of water at the bottom. I don't think that's a good idea. They prefer to be well drained, so by putting them up in baskets somewhere, then you're not likely to have that happen to you. Tip number 5, high humidity. Now this is one which I've put on there, however some very credible sources that I've researched and read have said that that is really negligible. However, I'm going back to where they come from in the tropics, and I'm guessing that these kind of rainforests that they come from, it is high humidity, so it certainly wouldn't hurt if you can give them some kind of high humidity. Over in the UK, we very often have high humidity anyway, even though I do have a hydrofogger keeping it at the minimum of 70% humidity. So that's certainly something to try if you're struggling to get more pictures. Number 6, warmer temperatures. Should really go without saying, but of course mine produce the most pictures during the warmest part of the year, so that tells its own story. I have here a couple of lowland Nepenthes, a couple of highland Nepenthes. The highland ones are the gaya over on the left and the burkei, the one that I'm pointing at the moment. They are both highland Nepenthes, so they will go down to 12 degrees Celsius. However, you need that temperature to go up again during the day, and this is one of my biggest problems because I have a cool side and a warm side to my greenhouse, and in the cool side, yes, I can keep a minimum of 12 degrees Celsius, so they're not going to get damaged. And you know, you should really take that really seriously, that minimum of 12 degrees. I did have, I think it was Nepenthes Bloody Mary, and that did go slightly below 12 degrees and I lost it, which was such a shame because it was a very expensive plant over here. So yeah, in the winter my problem is I can get it to 12 degrees, but it will not go higher than that, and I can't afford to get it any higher. So I've just got to accept that even though I'm keeping them alive through the winter, I'm not going to get very many new pictures. So if you can get them higher during the day, that will be wonderful. Obviously the lowland Nepenthes, they need to be kept at a minimum of about 16-17 degrees Celsius. So that is number 6, warmer temperatures. Number 7, the lighting. Now again, in the UK we have very short days in the middle of winter, down to about 6-7 hours. So what I do is I supplement with grow lights. So if you can do that and try and keep the lighting at about 11-12 hours a day, I won't go beyond that because that's more than they get in the tropics. About 11 really is about correct. About 11-12 hours a day of as much light as you can give them, then that will definitely help. Tip number 8 is to let them catch their own prey. Now because I'm in a greenhouse, I have these vents up here and I have louvered windows down at the bottom underneath the benches, and I do get insects in here. And you might have seen on my Instagram page, and if you don't follow me on Instagram, by all means go and click on the link in the description and you'll find me over there, and you'll see very often I post pictures, especially of this Nepenthes gaya over here catching its prey. It seems to be in a spot that is very, very attractive, and to insects, by the way. Some of these pictures are filled with all sorts of insects. It's really amazing to see, because I come in here and I don't see any insects until I go and have a look at those pictures. So that's number 8, and I've got a couple of bonus tips for you that has just kind of sneaked its way into this top 8 that I kind of thought of a little bit later on. So a couple of bonus tips. I would say that if you need to repot them, then clearly you cannot repot them in anything that has some kind of nutrients in them, because of what we said earlier. They don't like nutrient-rich soil. If they had those nutrients, then again, it might not kill them, but they're not likely to produce pictures. You've got to starve them. This is partly, well, this is more or less exactly why we use RO water or distilled water to water them with. If they're getting those nutrients, then they do not need to produce the pictures. If they produce the pictures, then as I've seen quite often over the last couple of months, then they will produce more and more and more pictures. And they really are looking great at the moment, and they're producing more pictures than I have ever had on these Nepenthes. And your bonus tip is to buy more mature plants. I have some very small plants. I'll just quickly show you. There's a couple of them over here, and even though they are producing pictures, if you've never grown Nepenthes before, you'll know that Nepenthes, or you won't know, that Nepenthes take a long time to get to maturity. And then they do grow quite quickly, but they stay in that very small stage for quite a long time. So unless you've got the patience of Job, it's well worth you buying and paying a little bit more for plants about the size of these. These are much more mature. We're talking like 3, 4, 5-year-old plants. Now over here, that means quite a lot of money. A lot of these plants are above £45, which obviously it's a risk if you're in the UK, because you don't want to go and lose a plant of that expense. And some of the other more interesting Nepenthes are way more than that. I've seen them priced at £130, £140, which isn't really something I'm inclined to pay. That's great, that picture there. It's just grown in the moss on the surface, and that is actually how a lot of the pictures grow in the wild. So that's my 8 tips plus 2 bonus ones. However, I missed off my number 3, which I said was my probably most important tip. I think all these things taken into account make a difference, but the one thing that made a difference for my Nepenthes Rebecca Soper, which just wasn't producing any pictures, if you did see that last video, it was just a vine. I was letting it vine, and it was probably vining, it was up to about 4 feet. And my tip is, don't let them vine. If you're really keen on pictures and you're not interested in seeing the flowers or pollinating or cross-pollinating, then don't let them vine. Cut them off, and you'll find that the basal shoots, which obviously come at the base, these ones are far more likely to produce pictures for you. And as soon as I stopped them vining, then I started getting all these different pictures. And like this one over here, it's like they're going out of fashion, I think, that it can't produce enough pictures. There's loads. That is a real big change for me compared to what it was like when I was letting them vine. Yes, they both did bloom. However, the blooms are nothing to look at. They're nothing special to look at unless you're interested in that kind of thing. So I would definitely say, for me anyway, that was the game changer. That and the RO water. For now anyway, I am getting some wonderful pictures. I expect that to change as the weather changes here and we go into autumn. I expect them to slow down because they won't be getting that raise in temperature, and they won't be getting like the full spectrum sunlight throughout the day, even though I've got grow lights. That will help, but it's not as good as the sun coming through the window, is it? So I hope those tips helped. I think all in all we've got 10 tips for you there. If your plants are still not growing pictures, then have a look at your care and see if you are following all those rules that I've put out there for you. I hope that helps, and please, if you've got any other tips that you think I might have missed, stick it in the comments below. I'd love to hear from people, and for now I'll see you on the next one. Bye.